Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast, so there I was. It's how all great aviation tales begin. This is episode 81. I'm a freaking piñata.
I got
just hang in there.
I got a core workout because Jungle tells a great story, and his stories are actually, well, they're very good, but like I said, he's funny. I got a core workout out of that.
This was a great time. Yeah, we had a blast, and I think he had fun and is willing to come back too. But we spent almost 2 hours with Jungle, so this is going to be a little longer than normal, but the time's going to pass quickly. Be prepared to pull over on the side of the road so as not to hurt yourself.
Right. That's right.
We have a couple of thank yous before we talk more about Jungle, though, Fig.
Yeah, we have a new division lead, El Piloto.
Nice.
He sent us a note, and I'll read it now.
Yeah.
Hi, Fig and RePete. Loving the shows you guys are churning out. Your shows take me back to the days when I flew with a number of ex-RAF Harrier guys who also had a plethora of awesome stories to regale me with as we ran the bucket brigade to and from their holidays between the UK and the sunny beaches of Europe. As someone who is 6'5", I could never fit in a jet unless it had freight in the back. I had accepted my fate, and I wasn't going to fly anything that could make me go ballistic, ever. So I might as well fly with an espresso in hand. Hence, now I fly self-loading freight as a skipper with said espresso in hand on a 4-engine, double-decked flying cruise liner that is the A380. Could be worse. Check 6, El Piloto. So
right.
Thank you, El Piloto.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you, El Piloto, newest division lead at solerawas.us/Patreon. And thank you to all our Patreon pilots. You folks are amazing. You're helping keep this show going more than you realize. You know, money isn't tossed into your pockets. You work hard for it, and that you share it with us it's humbling. I've got no better word
humbling.
for it. Yeah.
Very humbling. Thank you.
We appreciate it, and we pledge to do our best to keep bringing you great shows, much like this one with Jungle. Another quick thank you to our sponsor, Robin's Bird Brain Designs. Get custom laser etched coasters. She does a whole plethora of other things too. For the other day, I was looking at some of the things she's got, like LED nightlights that you can turn your kid's drawing into an LED nightlight.
Wow.
I mean, stuff like that. Custom work, custom laser etched, almost anything. And she's got new equipment. She's getting the ability to etch all kinds of things. Reach out to robinsbirdbraindesigns.com and see what she can do for you. Gift season's coming up.
That's right. Christmas is coming up. I utilized her last year, and it worked out great.
Right. Hey, you know what we're starting to get some more of? Ratings. Only 5 stars. Keep that perfect record coming, please. If you want to give us something less than 5 stars, please write to us first and tell us what we can do to improve. Give us a chance to earn your 5 stars. Right? So there I was, .us/rate.
Hey, we are trainable. We are definitely trainable. We've proven this over and over.
Right on. Good point. So, and then what else?
Share the show. Share the show.
Yeah.
Share it on your social media. Share it with your friends. Share the show.
Do it. Do it now. Pause this.
Please.
Go share. Go tell 2 people about it. Tell them to tell 2 people about it. Then come back and listen to this amazing show that we've got with a gent who has more than 1,000 traps on an aircraft carrier, 4,800 plus hours in tactical jets. Tell me that doesn't give you the sore backside at the end.
No, that's impressive. That's a lot. That's a lot for a tactical jet. You know, and he didn't. You know, we didn't talk about it, and he didn't say. But I bet he's about an inch and a half shorter than he was when he started.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And now here's the interesting thing. He and I were in Beeville at the same time. Now, we didn't know each other, but I imagine we crossed paths and probably drank right next to each other at the O'Club a couple times. He finished Beeville, I think, about 2 to 3 months ahead of me. And
Jungle and I served together as instructors down in Kingsville.
Right. And so in all likelihood, you actually flew in the same jet together at some point.
I probably checked him out in the T-45. It was about that right time frame. And I have to go back and look at my logbooks to see, but I bet you that's the case.
There you go. So he was the executive officer, second in command at Navy Fighter Weapons School, a.k.a. Top Gun. And he was CAG Ops for CAG 9, I believe he said. Guy had an amazing career. I mean, just no two ways about it.
Yeah. 5 combat deployments, I think.
Flew right out of flight school, got the actually he had a choice between, I think it was Prowlers and S3s. Is that what he told us?
This was a horrifying story, actually.
It was. And the skipper goes, tell you what, I'll make you a surgrad and then you'll be able to get your choice. So you just get your wings. Now you're going to go right back into this squadron and teach other guys coming through what you've just learned, and you're going to be a surgrad instructor. I'll make that happen. Well, they had turned the surgrad program off. And so skipper called him up, and it did a mean thing. Listen and find out.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a dirty trick.
It was. And it's so bad, he actually called the skipper's house late at night.
Yeah, right. Did you really say this? Is this really the case?
Yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Don't tease it anymore. I mean, don't give away anymore.
No, exactly. And then, of course, we asked him about his call sign, Jungle.
Yeah.
What a hoot.
Yeah.
He started it in Beeville and solidified it in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Hey, man, let me borrow your Jeep. No, you're drunk. Oh, I'm not going to drive it on the road. Okay.
That's the drunk aviator's logic. Oh, you're not going to drive it on the road? Okay, no problem.
Here are the keys.
Here are the keys.
Oh, man. Interestingly, he did talk about, remember we talked to several F-14 guys, it seems is a more common theme. These guys come aboard the boat at night, and one of them said, my knees were shaking every time. And,
right.
And he talked about, he said, I never really had that night in the barrel. But he did have an interesting night one night. He talks about that.
This here is a true story.
This is just
about crossing the pond.
I don't know, Fig. I think we'll get out of the way.
Let's get out of the way.
The world's smallest cockpit.
This is a short 2 hours coming your way.
On the tanker.
Sit on the ejection seat.
Through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that. Thanks a lot. We really appreciated that.
Just kidding.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. There I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was, 35,000 feet in an F-14A over the deserts of Nevada, both engines off. I'm one of the few guys that have glider time in F-14s.
What? Did you say both engines OFF? Both engines
F. Yeah.
Well, welcome to So There I Was, which is how all great aviation tales begin. And that is a great aviation tale that I can't wait to hear the end of. This is Fig, and I am in Kearney, Missouri. Where's my co-host?
I'm in Lee, New Hampshire tonight, enjoying a little bit of time off. Yeah, getting ready for some winter storms. And RePete here, coming to you from New Hampshire. Fig, RePete, and we are welcoming none other than Jungle F-14D pilot, among other aircraft that he's flown. And boy, I can't wait to hear more about that. Some glider time in an F-14 does not sound...
No.
Oh, man. Anyway. Yeah. But I'll tell you what, let's back up a little bit. I'm given to understand that you might have been to an air show once or twice as a lad, and that's how you gained interest in aviation, or am I mistaken?
No, that's true. So I grew up in an aviation family, but none of my immediate family were military aviators. But my dad was a big aviator and aeronautical engineer, and so we went to air shows all the time.
Okay.
And so I wanted to hunt and wanted to fly airplanes, and I just assumed that I was going to be a fighter pilot, and I assumed that meant the Air Force. And when I was 11, I went to Oshkosh, a big air show up there,
nice.
The EA air show, and an F-14 was there doing a demo, and that was back when you could stand like, I don't know what it was, 700 feet, 750 feet from the show line, and the Tomcats still had the high gloss paint job, from
Oh, yeah.
From back in the 80s.
Shiny and pretty, huh?
Yeah, it was gorgeous. So he does the demo and leaves, and the announcer says something like, he's going back to the ship. Yup. And he starts introducing Dwayne Cole, world famous aerobatic instructor, and everybody looks at Dwayne Cole, and he's taxiing out in his Taylorcraft. And then he's like, Dwayne Cole taught the Wright brothers how to fly, and his da-da-da-da-da-da, and from the left, the high-speed pass. And, everybody does this, and here's the Tomcat on a perfect summer day, not a sound being made, right? Just totally silent, coming down the runway right at me. And high-gloss white and all the squadron colors and, blue sky and green grass.
Yeah.
Boom, thumps my little 11-year-old chest and disappears into the vertical, doing rolls out of sight. And like that. So I knew right then I wanted to fly Tomcats out of Miramar. And so that's what I did.
I got hair on my arm standing up because I was there just then. Yeah. I was. I totally
yeah. It's awesome.
Dude,
yeah,
I know, right?
Yeah.
That Tomcat pilot stamped his name on my chest.
Oh, yeah. And then how could you not do that? You were screwed. You were screwed at that point, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So obviously you did that, but we all know that is not a short or easy road. So tell us the process.
Well, it was, it's funny. When you know that early what you want to do, you have a little bit of an advantage over most of your peers.
Right.
Yes.
And so I went to Valley Forge Military Academy for a couple of years because I wanted to see if I wanted to go to the service academy, wanted to go to Annapolis. And so I tried that out a little bit and decided there were no girls there and I didn't want to do that. So I went to Villanova ROTC instead and thoroughly enjoyed my time there. It was a good unit. We had about 340 or something like that people.
Villanova. Hey, what year did you graduate?
I was an 88 guy.
Was Biscuit? Was
Biscuit
a Villanova
Tom
guy?
Driscoll.
Tom Driscoll?
Yeah,
absolutely.
No shit. Well, the world just got a little smaller.
It did indeed. Fig couldn't make it, but was it June? I think it was June that we went to.
Yeah. It was July, wasn't it?
It was June or July. We went to Arlington National Cemetery and reinterred Biscuit. He was buried in Rochester, New York. Died in Spain in 1992.
I remember.
And was buried in Rochester. And when his dad passed, who was also an Army vet, his wish was that they be interred together at Arlington. And so they exhumed him and brought him down, and they interred them together in Arlington in an amazing ceremony. And it was almost a squadron reunion for us. So
that's so cool.
Yeah,
it was. I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Yeah,
I remember when the accident happened.
Yeah. Oh, soul crushing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Small.
In fact, we're coming up on the 31st anniversary of that. It's November 11th.
Yeah, it was 91.
Yep.
It was 91.
Oh, okay. So 32
years.
years.
November of 91.
That's right. Yep. Because we were in West
Bay. We had a bad run there out of Villanova. There was Planet Claire was killed in a Tomcat too. Right about that time, he was a Villanova classmate of Biscuits.
Damn.
And the nose gear pulled off on the stroke. They couldn't get out.
Jeez. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was. But it's funny, the unit was big enough to where there were always Villanova guys around. 2 backseaters I worked with went on to command squadrons and did really, really well out of that same class.
Oh, okay. Nice. So Villanova, then AOCS?
No, I was ROTC, Navy ROTC, so get your commission right at graduation. And then I did like a 3-month stint at the Pentagon stash waiting for my flight school date at AI in Pensacola. Was St. Patty's Day, right? So that was fun. But so stashed in, a young ensign, brand new ensign.
At the Pentagon, you said?
Hilarious, yeah. I was in the Congressional Liaison Office. That was a laugh riot. We had, literal, 3- and 4-star admirals coming by just wanting to see the ensign, And what was interesting is that every single one of them told me that they would trade places with me right then. And it would take me, 20 years to understand what they meant, But,
yeah. Oh, I get that. So that's awesome. Let's see. You finally got to Pensacola in the spring of '89.
Yeah. So St. Patty's Day '89. I checked in. And I'm like, hey, is there an Irish pub around here? And they're like, you must be McGuire's. So I guess I do.
Right.
Started a nice love affair with McGuire's Irish pub. It was good.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you? What
It's
a
still
great
there.
day to what a great day to check into Pensacola too.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids love to go there when we go to Pensacola. So, all right.
Which VT were you in?
I was VT6.
All right.
I called it World Mart, wherever it was. The
Food World.
That's a
Yeah,
looked like a supermarket logo. Yeah.
I was in the same squadron like a year before that. Was Grouch still there? The senior Marine?
Yes,
Grouch?
he sure was. Yeah, sure was.
He was my
Okay.
own wing. He was my own wing when I went through there. What an experience that was.
Yeah. Okay.
Those were good times.
Then,
Well, obviously, you did well in in primary because you got jets, and I know you went to Beeville, but before we leave that, was there any? So did you have prior flight time before you went to flight school?
I did. Technically, the answer is yes. I was not a private pilot or anything like that, but my dad had a little Cessna 140, 85 horsepower Continental tail dragger, and I got to the point where I could take off and I could probably land it without killing us, but that was about it. I knew thrust, drag, lift, and weight, and that was about it.
All right. Well,
I've got 3 of those anyway. I'm good, right?
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Yeah, you wind up in Beeville. Obviously, VT-26 was the first one. That was the T2 squadron.
That's right.
And you remember? Did you ever fly with Tammy Jo?
Did I ever fly with her? I think she was in a form, not in my cockpit.
Okay. All right.
I had a couple of briefs with her.
Okay. I just asked that because we had her on the show. I don't know if you remember, about 5 years ago, Southwest lost an engine and a passenger was partially sucked out. Yeah. She was the captain on that flight.
Yeah, she did a great job too. And I was so amazed to find that connection. That was really cool.
Right? Yeah. I was getting dressed in a hotel room getting ready to go to work. And I hear, one of the Navy's first F-18 female pilots, Tammy Jo. And I'm like, I bet that's her. There's not too many women named Tammy Jo flying Hornets.
not back then there was.
No. Oh, so very cool. All right. And then on to BT-25. I think that was the Cougars.
Yeah, sure was. That was Jet Palmatier was my skipper then. He was an A6 guy, and Ready Room was full of all kinds of aviators, and Jet was a big chess player. And so if you were a student and sitting in the Ready Room, you had to either be reading NATOPS or playing chess, and there were chessboards all around the edge of the Ready Room. And I couldn't stand sitting and reading the big blue sleeping pills, so I'd play chess all the time, and I'd sit over there. And there were a couple of instructors who were really, really good and kicked my ass all the time. But it was I found that invigorating, not exhausting. I found reading the NATOPS manual exhausting.
Yeah,
right.
It's the quickest way to go to sleep. I mean, really,
it absolutely was.
Yeah. Yeah. For our listeners, we've covered it before, I'm sure, but NATOPS is basically the flight manual for the jet. How to fly, how to operate this aircraft. So, yeah, and referred to as blue cover as a big blue sleeping pill because, man, it was a tough read. Yeah. 6 inches thick. And sadly, a lot of it written in blood, but that's...
If it was a warning,
Yeah.
it was probably because it was written in blood.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. So,
All right.
Awesome.
Got winged in sometime around 91-ish?
Oh.
Yeah, it was November of 90. November of 90 is when I got winged. And that was quite a process. I had done really well in primary, and then I did really well in Beeville. And when I got a call from, to the Ready Room from the wing commander there, trade wing commander.
You get your first choice, right?
Yeah, Indy was my call sign then. Hey, Indy, head over. And so I headed on over to the wing, and Commodore sits me down and says, hey, I got some bad news for you. There's 7 of you getting winged, and you're going to be, you have your choice, since you're number 1, you have your choice of 5 S3s, an ES3, or a Proud.
Oh, shit. That's not a choice.
Yeah, and I damn near died. But it was like the 5th time in my short, Navy career that I'd been absolutely terrorized or terrified that my career was about to end, that I was going to get stopped by something. And so there I was like, oh, son of a bitch. I guess I said, the Prowler has a trigger, right? I'll take that. And I said, all right, sorry, Andy. And out the door I went. And Jet, my CO, called me at home. He said, that's, blankety, blankety, blank. Bullshit. That's not happening. I'll make you a SIRGRAD. And the SIRGRAD program had already been canceled. But he said, I'll get you in. I'll keep you around for a year, and then we'll get you another set of orders. Screw that. I guess, sir. He said, just sit at home. Don't drink too much. I'll give you a call when I get an answer. And he calls me back 2 days later, and he's like, hey, man, I'm sorry. I did everything I could. I couldn't make you a SIRGRAD. Sorry, sir. I appreciate you trying. It really means a lot. I really do. He says, yeah, the best I could do is Super Tomcats out of Miramar.
What?
I was like, what? Because at that time the D didn't exist. Nobody knew that the class was available for selection. But I was student number one in class one, and I was so. It was one of those things. That call was like 4 PM, and about 10:30 that night, I had talked myself into. I didn't hear that right. He must have been joking. There's no way that was true. And I actually called his house that night, and his wife answered. And she laughed and said, no, you got it. All right, man. And so I was off. I was out to Miramar flying Tomcats, just like I always, what I've been
Student one in class one. No pressure.
So that was the Super Tomcat because of the D motors?
It was a whole, the worst thing they ever did to that airplane was call it F-14. They should have called it F-28 or something because it looked the same, but it was very, very different. The engines were obviously a huge difference, the GDF 110s. But the airplane internally was completely different as well. Basically a version of the Strike Eagle radar. We had the infrared search and track. We had a glass cockpit and a heads-up display that was beautiful. And yeah, it was all digital electronics and fantastic. It was what the F-14 always should have been.
So you started with, so there I was over the Nevada desert. Did you say it was an A model that you were in that day?
Yeah. Only A time I have. I was a D baby, and I flew the D. I'm the only pilot that flew every tour was in an F-14D, except at Top Gun, where we also had F-14As. And so I had to get kicking and screaming and F-14A qual.
Okay. That story is when you were at Top Gun.
Right.
Okay, so I do want to hear the end of that.
Yeah, so do I. But it is. I will point out that the guy who runs our Facebook group, Chase Cole, put in there OFF engines. That's where you want the engines, right? OFF, on for flight.
That's right. Yeah.
So nicely said, Chase. So yeah. So how was the RAG as being student one in class one? The instructors were all new too. Were you figuring it out together in a sense, or?
We were. In fact, me and a buddy of mine got there first. The class was unbelievable, right? It was the number one student for fiscal year 89 and the number one student for fiscal year 90. Then the number twos for 89 and 90, or 90 and 91, 89 and 90, and then one retread. And so the guys we were, all of these dudes that I was with, even the Rios, they were all freaking superstars. And we walked in the door and there were no airplanes yet. And we were there. Some of us were there a year early because the program had been delayed.
Wow.
But the sims were up. And so we were flying the sims, all day, every day. No instructors. We were just hopping in and
no bad habits developed there.
Oh, it was low levels through LA between the buildings.
Oh, that's awesome. And that was it.
We were asked to write the NATOPS. I was like, well, you can't just sit there and do nothing. So let's put you to work. And so we sat down and started editing the F-14A NATOPS, trying to turn it into the D, and we eventually did. I mean, it took a while, but we got there. And that process helped us all understand that airplane inside and out because we had to go get all the answers ourselves. So we were talking to Grumman all the time and the test guys, and that was fantastic.
I bet it was a good learning experience too.
I learned a ton about the airplane, what it would really do, because the Tomcat was always, fat on gas around the boat. We were never, ever limited. We were the fastest and had the most gas and the most loiter and everything else. And so we were never really limited, never had to max perform the airplane, but I learned how to and proved it one day by flying it nonstop coast to coast, west to east from San Diego to DC.
Yeah.
People saying it can't possibly be.
Was that Did you set was it some kind of record or some kind of event?
We were just the first time I did it was we were just my boss needed to go to DC. That was when Bupers was still in DC.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I took him out there and I said, hey, by the way, Skipper, I think we can go nonstop. And he's like, bullshit. Well, here's the performance charts. And I'll tell you what, here's all our, back when you did the nav cards.
Yeah.
And I said, well, here's all our checkpoints. And if we're off them, we'll just stop. He's like, all right. So we did it. We made it. And then later I did it without tanks to Pensacola from San Antonio.
That's pretty much coast to coast. I mean,
Yeah.
you're close. So when you did that, I'm assuming you were step climbing as you got lighter. I mean, how high did you eventually get?
Yeah, we were up at I think 41. I think is where where we were, and it was interesting because it was a very specific profile. Then all the data was there in NATOPS. It was all there. Just nobody ever read it.
Do you blame them?
Really need it, so yeah, it was. We're up in the low 30s, and then kind of step. And the issue was you couldn't get going too fast because you'd sweep the wings, right?
Okay,
yeah.
Sure.
Is it because that happened automatic? Correct. I mean, the wing sweep.
Yeah, you couldn't sweep them forward manually past whatever the computer limited to. You could always sweep them aft, but never past. So if you were going too fast, the wings would sweep back on you, and you'd lose that beautiful benefit of the swing wing. So you had to be on this altitude and speed profile that varied over time. And the other thing we learned was that the Rio, we used to put the master arm in training and load up a bunch of simulated missiles and start shooting, shoot all the airliners, going by.
Yeah.
And the Tomcat radar had this thing called timeshare illumination, TSI, where it could guide 6 missiles simultaneously, right? And so it would do that by, track wall scan, but then every now and then it would STT that guy and STT that guy, and then it would go back. And as it was doing that, as the targets were getting closer, the azimuth started getting pretty big, and that big dish would start swinging around, and we're on a max performance profile hanging on a thread. And
was it moving the nose?
It would move the nose around, and we'd start to come out altitude. And I peel them to, I pilot lock-on mode. The pilot didn't have control of the radar other than some visual arena radar modes. And I peel in the radar just to get it to stop doing that because we were coming out of altitude. I couldn't stop it.
That had to be a big dish.
So yeah, it was really fascinating. It really was neat.
I saw that coming. That had to have a big dish. Really, think about it.
Yeah.
For especially on the nose to wag it like that. That's awesome. Thank you. That's a great story.
Oh, that
okay.
is cool. So this is a little non-standard for the RAG. I mean, you show up, there's no planes, you're screwing around in the simulator, not screwing around, you're training in the simulator.
Yeah. And going to the club every night.
That's your story, and you're stuck with it.
So when did you, time from start to finish? Give me a time frame.
Yeah, how long was the RAG?
When did you walk out of the RAG and go to your first fleet squadron?
Yeah, we started up. I was in Miramar, early 91, and we started the class late 91, I guess, something like that.
Okay.
And then, is that right? I'm sorry. Forgive me. I think it's.
That's all right. I was just curious if it was.
It was about a year we were in the RAG, and
okay,
and I made it to 31 VF31 my nugget tour in 92. So I think we were in the RAG 91, mid 91 to mid 92, something like that.
What was before the new airplane? What was the normal RAG length? Like what was 6 months?
I can't really remember. I think we went through at about the same pace as everyone else.
Okay.
Because once the airplanes showed up, they were brand new. They were never down.
Nice.
And,
I bet they smelled like new cars.
New car smelling. Right?
Yeah, there were several airplanes that the manufacturing placard was right on the right rail of the canopy in the front seat, and there were several of them that the manufacturing date was the same month that I was sitting in the airplane. It was cool.
That's awesome. We had that experience in our Harrier squadron at one point. Yeah, flying planes that just came straight from McDonnell Douglas. So when you got to your squadron, though, was it, you say VF-31 was the first Fleet squadron? So those were all brand new airplanes, right?
They were, yeah. Brand new.
That's pretty awesome. That's kind of like being spoiled.
I wonder what that's like. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It was. I tell you what, that was. You want to talk about learning? That was where the bulk of my fighting, at least my air-to-air training happened in that first 2 years, because we didn't deploy until 94. So, and I was there at 92. And our XO and then CO was a guy by the name of Pogo Clark, who was just an absolute, killer, absolute badass, and recognized around the world as a guy to come fight, and he has his hands on the brand new F-14D, and he's got a whole bunch of frickin', wannabe Chuck Yeagers flying for him in the squadron. And people came from all over to fight us. And we went on the road, and, we went to the Air Force Weapons School, went to Navy Weapons School, the Canadians came to see us, Taiwan came to see us, everybody was there.
I know what you're saying, Jungle, but I want you to explain it. So our non-fight. So when you say people came from all over to fight us, you're meaning different aircraft types in front, right?
Correct.
So could you expand on that, because it's important?
Yeah. Well, the F-14D was brand new, and all it was on paper, right? And so you don't really know what the airplane can do until you're in it, and you don't know what the airplane can do until you fight it. So the things that I remember specifically is we got invited to come up to the Air Force Weapons School a bunch, and Skipper Pogo was very generous with us. He would cut us loose and go up there and a couple of JOs and nugget crews, and we'd be fighting Air Force Weapons School instructors, and
that's awesome.
And it was really interesting. We learned a ton, man. I mean, the Eagle guys, they're pure fighters, the F-15C. Right. Weapons school guys, and I fought their OPSO and their training officer 2v2 with my roommate flying in the other airplane, and we fought them three runs, full up Eagle versus full up Super Tomcat, and what an awesome fight that was. I mean, and we learned pretty quickly that their wing was optimized for high altitude. So if we hit the merge up at 30,000 feet or even above 25,000 feet, we were in trouble because our wings were too far back. But boy, once we got down below 20, and certainly once we got to 15, we just ate their lunch, man. It was really impressive once our wings would come out nice and straight. And you just see that thing, just like every end of every Hornet fight, it's just wallowing, out of knots and too draggy, you can't get it back. And it's just a gun target at that point. But boy, we learned to respect them up high. They just own us in the turn, And so there was a ton of stuff like that. People wanted to come and find out what the airplane had, and the F-16 guys all wanted to come and fight, and we were a good match.
I was going to say, how did it match up against the 16 and the 18? So as we know, it's the man in the machine. Right? Absolutely, it really is. Peers of equal capability. When you're young, the Hornet was an easier airplane to fly by far. It was a much, much easier airplane to hop in and make mistakes and recover in. The Tomcat was not forgiving at all. In fact, it would kill you if you insisted. But once you learn the airplane, and it took a year or two or three, once you really, really got it, you could fight anybody and beat anyone. There wasn't any airplane out there. I've fought a number of exotics as well, and the D. What was interesting about the D is that you could generate a very nice yaw rate. In the F-14A, it would kill you. You'd pop a motor and you'd be in a spin, and that'd be the end of that airplane.
That's what happened to Maverick and Goose.
Yeah.
It is literally, and that's why it's in the movie, because it happened a lot. Whatever it was, 35 airplanes, something like that. It was a lot.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh. I had no idea it was that many. Yeah. Well,
it's from memory. Please, nobody hold me to that. But it's a very
it's all right.
Shockingly high number.
Yeah.
But the D wouldn't do that. GE F-110s were fantastic, and so what I learned is you could split the throttles and generate, in pitch, you could generate 15, 16, 17, 18 degrees per second. In yaw, I could generate, 90, and so, I could get treed up over somebody and just point at them, just split the throttles and the nose would come right.
It's almost like having vectored thrust without having vectored thrust.
It was only in one dimension, but it
All
absolutely
right.
There you go.
30,000 pounds of thrust on each side, 9 feet apart. It worked great.
Yeah. So, Chase asks, what's your favorite platform to fight?
I've fought in combat in both the Super Tom and in the ENF, F-18 ENF.
Okay.
And in an air-to-air war where there's an air-to-air threat, I would be in the Tomcat. Absolutely, hands down, for speed, range, sensors, all of those things. In close air support, I'd be in the Super Hornet. It was a great close air support weapon.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got to ask you an administrative question, if you don't mind. What is the squadron makeup? When you got to VF-31, how many airplanes did you have, and how many pilots and Rios were there?
It was 10 jets, 14 crews, roughly. It was sometimes 12, but usually it was 10 and 14.
Is that kind of the standard loadout for an F-14 squadron?
It was at the time. So when my first cruise was awesome. 2 Super Tomcat squadrons, 2 Hornet squadrons, and then an A6 squadron, a Prowler squadron, ES3 squadron, S3 squadron, and 2 Helo squadrons, whatever it was. And the E2s and the Cotton, right? I think there were 9 or 10 squadrons on that boat.
Wow.
6,600 people on my first cruise.
What ship was that on, by the way?
That was the Vincent, the Chuck V.
All right.
Okay.
But anyway, so I'm sorry, where were we?
We were talking about the makeup of a F-14 squadron.
So later, when there was just a single Tomcat squadron, there were 3 Hornet squadrons that would go to 12, and I think maybe 1 even went with 14 jets.
Okay. So they plussed up when there was... Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So your very first cruise, any memorable, actionable items you want to talk about?
It was Southern Watch, and that was back when we were doing it around the clock, right? So we had the ship had like the midnight to noon watch, and the Air Force had the noon to midnight watch.
Of course they did. Yeah.
Right, because, Saddam didn't fly at night. So
Right.
So I'd go out there. I spent so much time on Texas and Maine cap, occasionally out on California cap, just, all the lights in the cockpit turned off up at 38,000 feet, saving the gas. And just the stars were so bright, and we'd see so many meteors, and, the stars were so bright I could read my kneeboard even without the moon once your eyes adjusted,
Yeah.
Wow.
And at the time we were watching Saddam's army, run through the South. They were, we were there to stop the airplanes. We weren't allowed to engage anybody on the ground as long as they didn't shoot at us. So,
was this August of 91 or August of 90?
No, I was later. I was in Southern Watch. It was 94.
Oh yeah. Okay. Shit. What?
Late
sorry.
93.
I just had a little time warp problem. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it happens, right?
Wait a minute. Did Saddam Hussein invade Kuwait? What?
Could you define for the listeners what Texas, Maine, and California caps are?
Yeah. So along the 32nd parallel, Saddam, the southern no-fly zone was the 32nd parallel south, and we had basically 3 standard caps that were kind of set out in the middle of the desert so that nobody could shoot at us theoretically. And the east one was Maine, the middle one was Texas, and the far one way out west by Jordan was California. And nothing ever happened out. Well, I say that, but most of the action was Texas. It was right smack dab in the middle of the country, and so that's where we would hang out and wait for somebody to come south. And the rules were, as long as the wreckage fell on south of the 32nd parallel, you could have at it. And on that cruise, nobody challenged us, but it was great. We were flying as fighters. Nobody had dropped a bomb. We didn't have F-14 at the time didn't have that capability, and the D was the last to get it. And so we had these fantastic loadouts, carrying 8 missiles and that kind of stuff, and full guns, and we're just raging around. The other thing we did was TARPs, the Tactical Air Reconnaissance Pod System. We had great air reconnaissance capability in the F-14, and since we were so fast, I was tasked to do that. And Pogo, my skipper, he hated TARPs. He just wanted to fight, And so he had his nuggets out there running TARPS missions, and I had to run through, was it Talil or Basra? I guess it was Basra, at like 10,000 feet to get the res we needed, the imagery we needed. And there was a bunch of AAA and stuff there. And so I came up with a plan to run through that town at like 800 knots at 10,000 feet and presented it to the Admiral, and the Admiral ran up the chain and approved. And I ran through Basra at about 8,000 feet, as fast as the top cat would go,
What time of day was this?
It was broad daylight.
That's what I was afraid you were going to say.
It was like 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Here we
go. And we were, we'd be gone so fast I had no chance. And we were up at Talil. We did a bunch of stuff. We'd run the border, the 32nd parallel at like 30,000 feet. We had this beautiful long range camera that would look out to the side. So we'd run the parallel, and we'd have our wingman down south looking, up north to make sure we weren't going to get jumped because we couldn't be,
How long did it take for them to realize that challenging the no-fly zone was a fool's errand?
And well, some of those guys did it pretty well. Well, one of those guys did it pretty well, and he lived to tell the tale. But yeah, most of them. It was. We had some fun later. A few years later, we had some fun with them.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that. I want to hear about these fun stories.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, so I finished up that cruise, went and did a tour down in Kingsville, which we can talk about another time. But
that's where we had a little overlap, maybe.
We did. We sure did.
Okay.
I think I was a student in your IUT front seat there.
I'm gonna have to look at my.
Me too.
My logbook.
So anyway, I left Kingsville and went back to the fleet for a Super JO tour in F-213 and joined them just as they were, a couple of sets of workups, and then off we went to cruise. And that one was Desert Fox, if you remember that, and in 98 and the beginning of 99. And that was a very busy time. Saddam was violating the no-fly zone every day, and we were busy. We dropped a lot of bombs and during that 4-day period of Desert Fox. But that whole sprint into the Gulf and everything, after Desert Fox was over, that January, Saddam violated the no-fly zone dozens of times. And so we took a couple of live commits. I took 2. And there was a Foxbat pilot who knew what he was doing. He was trying hard to get an AWACS or a tanker. And so he was trying to get past or over the top of Texas Cap or Maine.
Okay.
And when we showed up, the valley or the desert floor was full of AMRAAM. The Eagles were shooting, and the Foxbat had turned around, and trashed the missiles, and they had shot a bunch when we got there. And so we had the Feeney bomb, and we set up. We knew we were going to shoot at this Foxbat either the next morning or the day after that one. And I got the lead on the second day, but another guy, Bluto, got the lead for the first day. And we knew we were going to shoot. And sure enough, that Foxbat came out. And that was the only time that the Phoenix triggers were pulled. But
so he's talking about a Phoenix. You're talking about Phoenix air-to-air missile.
Yeah, the AIM-54, which was fired in anger twice, both on 2 different airplanes on the same run. And both of them failed to ignite. And it was because of the arming process. In the F-14D, you could confirm that the belly missile was properly armed on the catapult. And as you're pulling up to the cat, you go hands up and they arm you, the last thing you do before the stroke.
Yeah.
And you could see digitally feedback in the cockpit that the missile in the belly was armed, but the missile on the shoulder didn't have that feedback. And it required a little bit of elbow grease and some specialized knowledge to make sure you penetrated a plastic cap. And even though we specifically talked to our gunner and a few other people the morning or the night before, they did not get armed, and both those missiles fell into the desert and turned around. But later, just the next day, I was out flying against the guy. I took a commit. He did not come down right away, and as soon as he got airborne, Jeremiah started telling me to head south, and they were going to move some Eagles into my cap so they could take the run. And I was
I don't think so.
Bullshit, right?
And they're telling me to move south. I'm like, sorry, unable. And what I did, there was a bunch of SAM rings, a bunch of SAMs, surface air missiles down in Talil.
Yeah.
And so I flew up north of the SAM rings so that I could not fly south because you weren't allowed to fly in the SAM rings
Yeah.
at that time.
Sorry.
So I put the SAM rings between me and home. I was like, yeah, I'm not going south. And Jeremiah actually came up on a radio and called me by call sign and told me to, go home. I was like, all right, yes, sir. So I started going that foxbat. As soon as I turned south, that foxbat came after us. And the Eagles were over on California and tried to do this beam intercept on a Mach 3 airplane. They had no chance at all. And so I'm listening to this whole thing. We had JTIDs in the airplane, the Link 16. And so we were listening to this whole intercept and we could see it happening. We're like, yep, we're going to get called to commit. We're going to get called to commit. Okay, here we go. And sure enough, they're like, hey, can you guys? I was already in the turn. Tapes on, master arm, here we go. And as soon as we turned hot, that freaking foxbat turned around. So I didn't get a chance to shoot at him, unfortunately. But he was a smart guy. He knew what he was doing.
All right, foxbat. That's a MiG-25.
Correct.
So can you define? Can you just in general terms for our non-fighter listeners, what a MiG-25 is capable of?
Yeah, so the MiG-25 is not a turning fighter, right? It is a twin-engine, former Soviet high-altitude interceptor, and it is the fastest airplane on the battlefield. It's a good bit faster than everything out there. The Eagle and the Super Tomcat were both, capable of over Mach 2. That airplane was, literally capable of Mach 3. It was a fast airplane, and it could fly very high. That's so high that we could have that there were certain limitations that we had they would bump up against. It was a tough intercept.
Thank you for that. And one more thing. You said one more thing, and we both knew exactly what you said, but I just want you to. So you said
beam intercept.
No, stroke.
No. Oh, stroke. Oh, yeah, the cat stroke. Yeah.
Okay. You said stroke. It's a slang term for the catapult shot off the front of the barrier, right?
Yeah, the cat shot. It's the ride of the life.
It's called the stroke. Yeah.
And the beam intercept is trying to get to that foxbat on his beam, on his wing.
Yeah,
from directly beside him. Ain't gonna happen.
If you're pursuing somebody, if you're pursuing somebody like this and you're trying to cut him off and he's going faster than you, you'll never catch him, right?
Ain't going to happen.
Repeat, it only took 43 minutes. We got him using his hands. He was
just don't shoot your watch, Jungle. We'll be good.
Right. Yeah.
Only took 43 minutes.
That's right.
So Chemo, I don't know if you know or if you're familiar with Chemo.
I love Chemo.
Oh my God, Chemo, he was,
he almost knocked himself out.
I wish you guys could see what I'm seeing.
So here, let me try and talk about that F-15 trying to do a beam intercept. It's like me trying to run down Deion Sanders on a football field. Ain't going to happen.
Yeah, good luck.
And he's not coming at you. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, good luck with that. Right? Yeah.
So, I couldn't catch him if he was running towards me. So, but yeah. But that's a whole nother story. So, all right. And then one last one, JTIDs.
JTIDs. It was Link 16. So, when I first came to the fleet, Link 4 is, kind of a Vietnam, very old. Link
we're talking digital communications, right?
Yeah, correct. So Link 16 was a digital data link that at the time only the E2s, the F-14Ds, and the AWACS, and I think they could see it at AFCENT or CENTAF, they call it back then, I think. But we had everything that all the sensors saw. We could see automatically in the airplane, which was a huge help.
Yeah.
And then it also had 2 secure radios. And J-Voice. So we had 4 radios in the airplane, and all 4 were going when we were in country. But one of them, J-Voice, the J1, was an intel channel where there was all kinds of really good information going between the command center and the AWACS or the E2. And we were getting it live in the cockpit. So we didn't have to have it relayed to us via code words and everything else, because over the secure radio, they just used plain voice.
Nice.
And so the time to understand SA, your situational awareness, the time to understand what was going on was collapsed. We got really close to real-time information, which was extremely welcome and very helpful.
Right.
That's big. That's big time. Big situational awareness builder.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have a question. It's probably way out of sequence, but I have it. It's in my notes. My notes, not our shared notes. It's my notes. So somewhere in there you got the call sign of Jungle.
Oh, yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Are you able to talk about
Did that happen in Miramar?
Where did that
It started. It solidified in Miramar, but it started in Beeville.
Okay.
Yeah, at our boat party. It comes from Georgia the Jungle, right? And if you know the theme song,
Georgia of the Jungle. Hey,
Watch out.
Boat party. Talk about what do you
the
mean by
boat
for
parties.
that tree. Yeah. So
What is that? What is a boat party?
yeah, so a boat party is a party that is thrown by the crews that have just gone to the aircraft carrier to get their first arrested landing. So back when I went, it was in the T2 Buckeye aboard the USS Lexington in the Gulf Coast. Off the Gulf Coast, and
I got tears in my eyes right now, John.
I know, it was
tears
awesome.
in my eyes.
It was so. I was so lucky to survive that. It was a blur. It's an absolute blur. But when you come back, you cheat to death, and no matter what happens, you don't have your wings yet, but you go by yourself. You're solo when you go. You have a flight lead who's an instructor, but there's nobody else that's stupid enough to ride in your airplane when you're going to the boat for the first time. So it's all you.
Right.
And so you come back, you've cheated death. You're not a winged aviator yet, but nobody will ever take those traps away from you, right? You are a carrier aviator, whether you get your wings or not, And so you throw this huge party, and they're a lot of fun. A lot of bets are paid with the LSOs, the landing signal officers, and a lot of, it's a great time, and I was out doing donuts in the backyard of this boat party in Beeville, Texas, in a buddy's Jeep, brand new Jeep. It's like 2:30 in the morning, and he's passed out, and I go and wake him up. I'm like, "Hey, dude, I want to drive your Jeep," and he says, "You can't drive my Jeep. You're drunk." I'm like, "Oh, I'm not going to drive it on the road," and that made perfect sense to him.
You go, okay.
And so I'm in the backyard doing donuts, and there's no grass or anything back there. It's just dirt, And they say there's a beer and a tree, or a beer and a girl behind every tree in South Texas. The only problem is there's no trees,
Right.
and except for that one.
Yeah.
Except for that one, and putting up a cloud of dust and spinning around, and I see the headlights go by, and I'm like, "Was that it?"
Boom.
People started singing "Georgia the Jungle." Watch out for that tree. And there was a time a little bit later I managed to hit another tree off-road in Maui, going to a beach.
Well, did you hit the tree? Did you hit that tree? Because my internet connection got a little weak there. Did you hit the tree that night doing donuts?
I hit the tree, and then I kind of got away with it. I didn't get a call sign change out of that, but then I went on vacation to Maui, and one of the guys with me was at that boat party. I knew about this private beach on Maui, and there was no road to it or anything. You had to kind of drive down this jungle trail. And I had a Pontiac Sunbird convertible. Yeah, we rented, and the four of us are in that car. And I got to keep the knots up, right, or I'm gonna get stuck in the sand.
Got to keep the knots up.
Top of this farm, and there's two palm trees, and they're really narrow, and I got to keep the speed up, And my buddy's like, "Hey, you're not gonna make it." I'm like, "It's gonna make it." I said, "You're not gonna make it. It's gonna make it." We go right between the trees, and I leave both side view mirrors in the sand behind me. So, jungle.
There you go.
That's a perfect call sign. Thank you. That's awesome. I don't think you're going to make it. No, I'm going to make it.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is a rental car. What kind of car goes 100 miles an hour in reverse? A rental car.
Best off-road car in the world.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Here at So There I Was, we're proud to welcome Robin's Bird Brain Designs. Looking for a unique and thoughtful gift? Well, look no further. At robinsbirdbraindesigns.com, they specialize in custom slate coasters that are sure to impress. Imagine having a set of coasters personalized with your squadron logo and call sign, or even your aircraft tail number and instruments. Whether it's for your aviation enthusiast friends or a special someone in your life, their custom coasters are the perfect way to show that you've put some thought into getting that something special for someone truly special. But it doesn't stop there. They can also create coasters with any organization logo and printing that you desire. From military units or sports teams, they've got you covered. Their high-quality coasters are made from durable slate, ensuring they'll stand the test of time. So why settle for ordinary gifts when you can give something extraordinary? Visit robinsbirdbraindesigns.com today and let them help you create custom gifts that show just how much you care. Because when it comes to thoughtful presents, they've got your back. Well, as long as we're on party stories, let's chat about the Miramar O'Club. Was it, in fact, what it was made out to be in the movies? Was it as wild?
Oh, the movies had nothing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was quite an eye-opening event for this young man.
And
You know,
I
it
can
really
attest.
was. It was what I'm not sure people understood or cared about. It's not that big a deal. It's just a big party, but it was awesome. But Wednesday night at the Miramar O'Club was the place to be, not only in San Diego, but in LA. And so it was common to have Hollywood starlets show up and, Playboy bunnies and, but the people who would show up from San Diego were incredible women. They're doctors, they're lawyers, they're, corporate attorneys. And it was just,
It was something. I know this because I was there on a Wednesday one time.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, Jungle, I would think you're full of shit. But I know you're not because I saw it with my own eyes.
It was unbelievable.
It was out of control. I mean, out of control, figuratively, not literally, but firewalking was kind of normal. I'd pick up some hottie and run through the fire pit with him. No, I'm in a fireproof suit. What could go wrong? And it was. We had so much fun. We would culturally, right? This was the way Miramar worked. Is we had a separate gate entrance to the club, right? So you didn't have to come through the main gate. And if you wanted to come to the Miramar Officers Club on a Wednesday night, when I first got there, you had to have an ID card issued by the base. And they were called hostess cards, and we may or may not have called them hostitute cards. And so these and we would be stationed. There'd be some young sailor down there, security guard at the thing, but the ensigns and JGs were assigned from the squadrons. The Nuggets, the young guys, were assigned stints to go down to the gate, and we'd stand there with a flashlight and shine it in the cars and look at the security guard and go, if there was a dude in there or it wasn't up to snuff, they'd turn the car around and wouldn't let them in. And so everybody learned very quickly to come dressed to kill and don't bring your buddies no. And there'd be 300 cars. They're parked in the grass and a sea of windshields, and that place was.
I can attest.
It was a great time. I mean, it really was.
Yeah.
That was pre-tail hook, and it was was that pre-tail?
No, it was post-tail hook, but
it's post-tail hook, but pre-Diane Feinstein.
Yeah, it was pre-tail hook, and then tail hook happened, and that was a total shit show.
Oh my gosh! All right, well, I could go on. I want to hear all those stories, but we should probably move on.
I can't go too far down that road. Yeah.
Right? No.
So you eventually, I see, you were the XO at Top Gun. Is that correct?
It was. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Was that when Top Gun was moved to Fallon, or was it still at Miramar?
Yeah, no, they were. It was up at Miramar. I'm sorry, up at Fallon. They moved it right when I left Miramar. We were prepping it to give to the Marines already, So I think it moved in '96, and I left at the end of '95. So I got there in '03. I was there '03 to '05, and I'd done 3 back-to-back tours. Right? I did one with 213, which was the Desert Fox, and then I literally, hot pumps, crew switch, jumped into the VF-31 jet and went on cruise again.
Oh my gosh!
Which was a blast. And then we got a lot of work done then. And then 9/11 happened, and then I extended again. I actually turned down my first set of orders to Top Gun to extend and go to war, and then left. That deployment, that was the mission accomplished cruise, a 10-month deployment.
Right.
Left that about halfway through after doing a bunch of work in Afghanistan and went to Top Gun then. And so when I got to Fallon, Top Gun was doing 52 weeks of classes a year, right? They had, because we were doing.
Holy shit, that's nonstop.
It was, and it was insane, right? So there was no leave. There was almost no IUT. IUT was worked into the class, kind of thing. It was really, really challenging because at the time we had Navy classes, which were the fighter and attack classes. And then we also had the Marine fighter classes that were the old school classes that were 5 weeks long. And so one of the first things we did was change that. And it took a lot of negotiation between, Mott's and Top Gun and the big Marine Corps and big Navy to make that happen. And then we finally did. We got a few Marines up on the staff who were freaking awesome and stand ourselves with the Marine Corps. And we started teaching the same stuff, and it helped both schools a great deal. And so that cut down our classes to 5 a year or whatever it was. I think it was 5. And then, of course, we also had the senior guys like myself also were training air wing strike leads when the air wing was coming in town, which was all the time because there was a war on. And so, I'd do 2 Top Gun events and then go over and do an air wing event, at night. And those were some long, long days, but the flying was, best in the world without being shot at. So can't be in combat. It's the best in the world right there.
Jungle, how many hours did you finish your Navy career with in fighters?
I got about 5,000 total. I think it was technically something like
holy
49 and change. But yeah,
that's amazing.
So I was a high time Tomcat or Super Tomcat guy, and then really a lot of that happened. I mean, like a third of that happened in 2 years, Kingsville.
Oh, right.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, so yeah, talk about. Wait, was that 3-year tour or 2-year tour for you in Kingsville?
I did a 2-year tour. I was trying to be there like a year and a half and just get back to the fleet, and it took me about 2 years to work that. Maybe like it was maybe 27 months, something like that. But I was flying over 600 hours a year. And 1 year I flew like 800 hours or something. I mean, it was just dumb how much I was flying. I was flying 3 BFMs a day, and then I was flying a profile. Hold on. And you flew every day, right? So
Jungle, I'm having a flashback here. I got to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Did you have back then a big ass Breitling aviator watch?
Yeah. From
giant one.
Yeah.
And he shot it with his hand.
I remember you, bro. I remember. Yes.
I showed up. I was wearing my VF-31. Whatever.
Dude, I remember
Ascot.
you. I totally remember you now. It was the mature hair and the beard and the mustache that I'm looking at right now. Threw me off, but you're talking. I'm going, okay. Your voice sounds right. Now oh yes, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good times.
Good times.
A lot of flying. I mean, a butt ton of flying. And
right.
I learned a ton, man.
Right.
I learned a ton. So, you don't learn something nearly as well as when you have to teach it.
Right?
That's
exactly.
A fact. You don't know what you don't know until you have to explain it to somebody else whilst you're hurtling yourself at the ground at 500 knots.
Yeah, so you got to find a way to communicate it quickly, right?
Yeah, while we're talking numbers real quick, though, so I giving you grief a little earlier because you couldn't get to 1,005 traps.
Yeah, what a slacker.
Any traps that stand out in your mind? Any of those you recall over others, and why?
Yeah, I never really had a night in the barrel, which is a lot of
we've talked about that.
Yeah, we've heard some horror stories about a night in the barrel.
You just have, you got to go to the tanker a couple times because you just can't get aboard. Your scan's slow, whatever it is. I certainly understood the pressure. I had a very high boarding rate lifetime, but one day I did I hook skip or I got lazy. If you let go of the stick on touchdown, the nose would drop, the hook would come up, and you'd hook skip. And I might have caused that hook skip, and went over the side at night. Of course, there it was.
Of course, at night. Yeah,
at night, bad weather. And so I'm going around. It's no big deal, It's just one skip, and I come back around and I fly another pass, and I fricked it all up, man. I really messed it up, and I bolted just a straight, too much, high coming down in close, way too much power, flare to land, float over the wires, over the side I go. and as I'm going around the second time, I'm climbing out. I'm thinking I started to feel like. Because everybody's watching on the TV on this ship.
It's entertainment.
Everybody.
That's entertainment.
Right. And now all of a sudden, Jungle's gone around the second time, and
this is going to get good.
5,000 eyes come upon you, and it's all internal. It's all in your head.
Sure.
I felt it. I flew the pass of my life that time, but that was so. I never really had any that really stood out, except for late. I was flying a couple of missions in Afghanistan that were like 8.5, 9 hours long. And,
oh my gosh.
Coming back and recovering at like 1:30. And in the morning, and I was exhausted. My scan was slow. I'm holding in Marshall, waiting to come down, and my scan was slow. And I'm just screwing up left and right, and I know it, and I knew that my scan was so slow that my chances of getting aboard were very low, and I was so intimidated by that. I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to freaking eject, and there's nowhere else to go. We're in the North Arabian Sea, and I'm going to be a professional. I'm going to come down the chute and do my best. And I was pretty freaking scared. I really was. And I hate to sound so melodramatic, but I was flying like crap. I was. And I knew
so
it.
it had been in a 7.5 hour, 8 hour day already, strapped in that ejection seat, right?
I'd done it before. Yeah, I'd done it before, but for whatever reason, that I was getting my ass whooped. And so I came down the chute, and long story short, I trapped. But I remember as I was rolling out, right, when we trap, you get tugged back and you raise the hook. Once the hook clears the wire, and you get a signal to raise the hook, and then you throttle up and you turn out of the landing area to disarm, right? And so you got to turn 90 degrees, and there's another airplane right behind you, so you got to get out of the landing area quick.
Right?
And you got to get disarmed quick, and you got to get to parking quick. And so I trap, and when I get the tug back, I put the hook up, and I go to push on the rudder pedal to turn. That's how you turn the nose. And I start to try and turn out of the LA. I add power, and my legs are shaking. My feet were just shaking on the rudder pedals, and I couldn't push the stupid rudder pedal. And I just copped on the power, and now I'm kind of rolling straight ahead towards the end of the boat, end of the LA.
And the yellow shirt's screaming at you. But
oh man, I mean, I reached down with both my hands and grabbed my right knee and pushed my foot with with both hands.
Wow!
And turned out of the LA because my legs were jello.
Yeah.
And that's how much shot of adrenaline on that freaking arrested landing.
You are not the first Tomcat pilot to report that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's the first time it happened to me. It wasn't the last. It happened one other night too.
Yeah.
And there were times when I was lieutenant commander, right? OPSO of VO-31, and we're at war and everything. Man, you fly me at night, I am good to go. No problem at all. And
wait, what? A field grade officer flying at night?
Yeah,
is that allowed?
That's weird. Hold on a second. That's a little weird, Joe.
Yeah.
I was at the top of my game. I was as good as I was ever right then.
All right.
And, because the workload had, the administration workload hadn't gotten that big yet. And yet right in the middle of that, I had that night. That will always stand out because I've never felt that feeling before or since. I just knew. I'm not going to get bored. How the hell? What am I going to do?
So I got a note here that says shooter saved me from ejecting once. Shooter meaning that the launch officer?
No, so shooter is his
guy.
Call sign. Yeah,
Okay,
so that was a Top Gun. Actually, that's the story we started with. There it was.
Oh, well,
Okay.
let's go there.
Let's do it, baby.
Yeah, so there it was. This Tomcat, we were getting the F-16s right there. We're getting the F-16s at Fallon to fly as Red Air, as bad guys, professional bad guys. And the Tomcats were going away. And in the last couple of months where the Tomcats were going away, they got to I think it was Boeing back then. I can't remember who the contractors were, and they were great people. But, the Tomcat wasn't getting any love at the end. And the F-14A engines, the TF-30s had, compressor stall issues. They would stall and quit. And you'd have to turn them off and clear them and restart them. And that was fairly common. And what the maintainers were doing reportedly, they were dialing back the performance of the engine so that it would have more margin for compressor stalls, and to prevent those compressor stalls. So, at any given time, you're taking off at Fallon at 4,000 foot altitude with, one engine that's making 80% thrust, the other one's making 69% thrust, and, off you go. And they were
RePete's laughing his ass off already.
Whether you need it or not, you got all that thrust.
Whether you need it or not, you got it all.
Yeah. And it was something else. So anyway, I'm on a high fast flyer, so I'm up at 40 something thousand feet and trying to get up 1.5 or 1.6 Mach, and for this presentation for the students, the class students. And on this particular flight, it was wintertime, and there was a huge snowstorm, and it was coming west to east. Reno was our divert.
Now, were you operating? Were you Red Air at this point?
I was Red Air for this hop. Yeah.
Okay.
And so there's a huge snowstorm that's supposed to close Reno and eventually Fallon, but we're going to get this last X in, this last class event, and then we'll knock it off. That'll be the end for the weekend kind of thing. We'll all go skiing in Tahoe. It'll be great. And so we're out getting this event, but the storm, as it turns out, unbeknownst to us, because we're airborne, the storm is advancing much quicker than forecast, and it's already snowing in Reno, and the weather has gone to mins. It's like 200.5 and it's snow. And so I'm up on this high fast flyer profile, and I have to maneuver. And that was when the engines quit, and the F-14A, you had to be really careful with it and not get any nose movement at all. And of course, I start to roll the airplane in a nose lift slice, and boom, the engine that was very prone to quit. Okay, so I continue my maneuver, nose low. And in the maneuver, I'm clearing the stall and going for a relight, but the students can't shoot me when I've turned like this. So I want to kill remove. I want to get shot so I can go work on this problem. And so while I'm trying to restart the right, I start this kind of gentle turn back in towards the students, figuring I'm going to get shot, kill remove so I can work on this. And as I start turning back in, left engine quits. The right engine quit first, and left engine, bang. And it was really stupid. A seasoned F-14A guy would have never done that, because they know you're already asymmetric thrust, and if you're trying to maneuver, you're just setting yourself up. And so
whoops.
Hot boat motors. I go wings level, and all the power, all the displays, everything quits. And I get the right motor comes back. I'm sorry, the right motor never came back. I eventually got the left motor back, and so I start climbing back out. And as I start turning back to Fallon, we get this big knock it off weather, and it's already now starting to snow in Fallon. And so I'm climbing up. We have to let the students go because they're short on gas anyway. And so I start to turn back around. I'm still working on going through checklists with my Rio, and we're trying to get the right engine going again. And the thing that's complicating matters for me is that the left generator never came back. So I've got no generators on the airplane.
Oh.
I've got left engines running, but I've got no systems at all.
Do you have a rat?
No, there's no rat. So I've got a handheld radio on me and a handheld radio in the back seat. And so, I got one engine running and no platform, and the field's going IFR. And,
no platform.
No platform. We have no navigational systems in the airplane.
The INSs are dead.
No displays.
No displays.
I did have steam gauges, so I could tell what our altitude was and our airspeed and that kind of stuff.
You can keep your wings level, and that's about
and you
it.
had probably a peanut standby gyro at that point,
that's
right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Oh, shit!
Yeah. And so I'm still clear clouds, but they're moving in, right? And so we're climbing up over top of these clouds because I can't get down there. It happened very, very quickly, right? The valley's just filled in, and so I'm calling for a wing.
It's terrifying.
And we're calling on the frickin' handheld radios, right? And those things are junk.
Which is in your survival vest.
Correct.
The Brick 90s, the little handheld. Yeah, walkie-talkies is what they are.
Yeah, and my Rio was a total stud, man. He had an earpiece for the thing, and had it all set up, and he's running the radio from the back seat. And we fly over to Fallon, overhead of all the weather, and there's PARs going on, the precision approaches that are guided by ground control radar.
Oh my gosh.
And so the PARs are going on underneath us, and we're calling, trying to get a hold of somebody. And we finally get Shooter Rob Simone, fellow Top Gun instructor. He's in a Hornet, but he's a Tomcat guy. And he's like, hey, he's out of gas, and he's on a PAR. He's shooting an approach into Fallon, and he's out of gas. And I said, dude, I can't come down. We're gonna jump out of this airplane if you don't come get us. And so he's like, okay, here I come, boss. And he comes on up, and I'm holding, at this point, I'm at 32,000 feet, and we're 2,000 feet above the clouds.
Oh
and I don't even know where we are for sure. Right, we don't have a GPS.
Right. Yeah, your INS is done.
Are you shining your flashlight out the canopy so he can find you?
Well, the only thing that makes this.
Oh, he's got a radar.
It was daytime. Yeah, it was daytime.
Oh, okay.
So I actually see him. I guessed I was in Dixie Valley, and that turned out to be about where we are. And I see him come out of the clouds. He's nose on us, and he had us on radar. We're the only airplane out there. And so he comes, and I was so happy to see him. So he joins up on me. We never did get the other engine online.
But you said he's got no gas, right?
I know.
He's got no gas.
He's got no gas. And so now we start down.
He's like, is that a Prick 90 in your hand, or are you happy to see me?
Exactly. I was so happy to see the airplane. Holy crap. So we start down, we go into the clouds, and if I lose sight of him,
it's over.
We're going to eject.
Yeah,
right? I can't.
Over.
My standby gyro is gone. I've got no attitude reference at all except for his airplane. So we're just flying through the snow and ice with him. And if I lose him, we're out. And so me and my Rio are talking about this, and man, I really don't want to jump out, but that's what we're going to do. We don't have any other choice.
It's going to be cold.
Down for this PAR, and he's emergency fuel. And so what this means is we're going to fly a dissimilar approach, right? So it's a Hornet and a Tomcat, which is a very complicated approach. But then the Tomcat is single engine with some of our systems missing, right? We're missing a hydraulic system and everything else. Yeah. So we have to take, and it's snowing, right?
You're going to take a trap.
So I'm going to take the short field gear, but Shooter doesn't have enough gas to go around. Holy shit. So I'm going to go into the short field gear, and Shooter's going to land over the short field gear and go into the long field gear. That's our plan.
So that's a cable across the runway at the short end and the long end. So the hooks will go down to stop the airplanes because it's a slick runway.
Yeah, normally.
Well, and he doesn't have the brake system, hydraulics. You don't have the brake
normally
system.
Normally, if you had a guy on your wing and it was low IFR, you would drop him off.
Drop him off, go around and do it again.
You'd go around, come back, and land behind him. But he didn't have the gas to do that. Holy shit.
So we come down and
yeah, this is a fucking shit sandwich.
It was nasty. I mean, it was nasty. And so we break out of the clouds, and there's the runway, and this is all being coordinated. I have no comms at all. Right.
The Rio's coordinating it.
Yes, we're shouting back and forth to the Rio.
Gosh.
And I'm saying, tell Shooter, they're going to go into the short field gear. And then if I skip, because you can skip the gear, and if we're going to land together, and if I skip the short field gear, I'm going off the runway. He's going to go into the long field gear. And if I end up behind him and he goes into the long field gear and I can't stop and I roll into the back of his airplane, that's bad.
Everybody's dead. Yeah.
So the plan was for me, if I skip, I'm just going into the grass or the snow. And the Tomcat was a pretty good off-road thing. There have been a number of Tomcats that have gone off the runways over the years, and they did pretty well. I wouldn't worry about it rolling over or anything.
Yeah. And Fallon's pretty flat. I mean, it's pretty flat from what I can remember.
I wasn't too terribly worried about it. Yeah. But, trying to communicate all that, tell Shooter.
No. So obviously you got your mask off. You're screaming, right? Yeah. So you can hear you.
So we come down and then we break out, and Shooter pats the dash, kisses me off, and down I go, and I catch the short field gear, and he lands right in front of me and goes down and gets the long field gear, and he taxied back, and I got the ride of shame on a van that came out to get the crew because we left the airplane. We were the last ones down. Yeah, and we left the airplane right there.
And in the middle of a blizzard at this point, right?
Yeah, it didn't matter, right? And so I catch him on the line. On the flight line, getting out of his airplane, I gave him this great big hug, man. I mean, he just straight up saved us from having to jump out of an F-14A, and that was that old seat, man. I did not want to jump out.
No, who the hell would want to voluntarily do that?
Man.
And so,
Shooter was writing checks his body couldn't cash. Came back up and got you with no gas.
Did you guys? Did you two crews? Did you guys? Wait, was he in an E and F? Is that what you said? So he had a backseater too, right?
Not that day. Okay. Not that day. He was a Tomcat guy, but that day he was in a single seat Hornet.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I mean that's kind of a big deal because both, that's not a cheap training aid, so to speak. F-14A, I know it was old and all that bullshit, but still, did anybody get a slap, pat on the back? Hey, attaboy, thanks for bringing the jet back. Thanks for going and rescuing these guys, or was it a good old fashioned, hey?
You did what you're supposed to do.
An air medal for it. Yeah, I mean, he should have got an air medal for it. But honestly, there was a huge distraction from that. Right? We go literally. My arms around him. I'm laughing, and he's laughing, and my Rio's laughing, and we go walking into maintenance control, and we have all these long faces, and like what's going on? Like, one of the F-5s flew in the mountain.
No shit! That day?
Right. That hot. Right. I saw the hole. I saw the hole that F5 chose to go down, there was a moment where I saw the bottom of Dixie Valley, and I was like, oh, if I could
this
get
is
down,
my chance. This is my chance. I dive through this hole. I can stay VFR, right?
Yeah. If I could get underneath those clouds, I could just fly, even if it was 100 feet, I could fly down the road, fly down Highway 50 until I got to Fallon and NAS Fallon and land. I could.
And that, my friends, is what we call a sucker hole in aviation.
Yeah.
Man, it was so tempting. And the weather was so dynamic. It happened so fast. And I was still up in the 30s, and I had to get down to 4,500 feet in a minute. It was a long, long way down.
That would have been a big ask. You were
hauling
ass
down and then recover. Single engine at the bottom, just right altitude. I didn't know how low it was.
There would have been 2 holes there, Jungle, if you would have done that.
I think so. And he went right there. That's exactly where he went. And the F5 was a terrible IFR machine. I shouldn't say that. It was a dangerous, challenging, high-speed airplane. Those guys did not want to shoot.
If you didn't have to, you really didn't want to fly IFR in that plane.
No.
I get it.
And so that I don't tell that story very often because of how it ends.
But that just highlights it's a hazardous business, and we all know that. And there's threats everywhere. And just when you think I got this thing solved, well, maybe I don't. And that's and all these stories. We got guys flying into terrain at night. Guys flying through a sucker hole into terrain. These are very capable aviators that were trying to
Yeah, they weren't slackers. They'd been trained.
No, this wasn't. They weren't flat hatting. This wasn't stunt flying. This was I got to get this thing done. And holy shit! It's just it's a very risky operation.
Yeah, it was. Start to finish. I think our old bartender out of Oceana kept a list, and it was 40 buddies start to finish in 20 years.
And that's 2 years. Now, you alluded earlier, and I don't know if this is. Did you fly the ENF, F-18 ENF as well?
I did. Yeah, my last my 07 deployment. Yeah.
As in an operational squadron or at Top Gun?
In combat. Yeah, in both Iraq and Afghanistan. In fact, I was there for the surge, if you remember that in 07.
Okay.
Yeah, no kidding. So ENF. So the E was the single seat, and the F was a 2-seat.
Correct. Yeah. Otherwise, pretty much identical.
And was the F a systems platform type thing, like with pods?
The G came along, and that was the Growler, that kind of thing. The ENF, this was really fascinating while I was at Top Gun. The ENF were identical in the front seat, and so the only, when we showed up, I was there for the last Tomcat class as an instructor, but I had a whole bunch of really talented Tomcat Rios. We're talking instructors there, and my challenge to them was to take these single seat Hornet guys who have no love at all for the Tomcat and no love at all for the backseaters, and make them want to take you in an F. And I said, you'll know you're winning. You've done your community a service when the biggest, baddest training officer, who has the whole world on his shoulders at Top Gun, instead of taking a C or an E, takes an F so that he'll have you in the back seat to help him on his fight. And those guys did that. And so there were some tasks. There are some times, and certainly I experienced those in the Tomcat. I knew that those times were there where, the vast majority of the time I can handle flying and fighting the Tomcat. But there was, a handful of moments where I needed somebody in the back seat. We were better together. 1 + 1 was not 2. We were something more than 2. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah. And it wasn't all the time, it was most of the time we just had our roles and we did them. But truthfully, I could have done them all myself on any given day. But that night when my scan's breaking down, thank God I had somebody in my trunk, whispering sweet nothings to me and handing me a Jolly Rogers up the left side. So I got a little burst of sugar, to get my scan going. Okay candy, we called it.
A trunk monkey.
Yeah. But, so I flew the E but I only did, I think all of my combat sorties in the Rhino, the F-18 E and F were in the F. I always had somebody with me. Because we were doing a lot of close air support, and that stuff is just, it's busy.
Yeah. Well,
I'm telling you guys.
We know about that. Hey, how many hours did you get in the F-18 Jungle?
I don't remember. I think I got over 1,000.
No shit. You got a lot of flight
time,
all? Brother.
Is that all?
What a slacker. Only 1,004 traps.
I'm not sure that's true. I might have ended up with like 850 or something like that. I have to look. I haven't.
There you go.
Listen, we're not going to hold you to it. It's okay.
Yeah. So, I flew as much as I could. I was a whore, man.
That's awesome. What about, so I have one other thing in the notes here too. You're talking, let's go back to Iraq. You said Iraqi triple A is probably one of your most intense moments in the airplane.
Yeah, so I did 3 back-to-back deployments, right?
Okay.
So I did the 213 deployment for Desert Fox, and then I moved over to 31, went on deployment with them in 2001, and then 9/11 happened, and I stayed around for the 02, 03 cruise. The 2 cruises were literally back-to-back. The one with 213 as a Super JO, and then as a young department head. So I had just left theater, and I came right back. And so I knew an awful lot. And so I was doing a lot of briefings and turnovers for all the new squadrons coming in and that kind of stuff. And, it's a new air wing, a new admiral, a new, everybody's new except for me. And Saddam was shooting at us. There was a bounty on us when we were there in 213. Some of us by name,
Wow.
There was,
How'd you find this out? I mean, what was this intel?
We knew a lot what was going on over there on that side, and they knew a lot what was going on our side too, because there were some people passing the airplane to Sudan every day. For crying out loud, he knew everything that was going on. Let's just say some of our allies aren't that allied. And
weird.
So
weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So when we were in country in 98, 99, we were getting shot at all the time. So when the Toms were in, we were flying at, 0.9 and then 10% of our altitude in seconds is we would take a big jang, 15 degree heading change or more. And that was for the big AAA. Saddam had more AAA pieces. I think it was the third largest, holder of AAA pieces in the world.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And he was using the hell out of them. And they had just shot down some airplanes out in Kosovo, and Saddam reportedly had some people coming in to advise him on how they did it. And they were trying, sometimes hard, sometimes not very hard. But so we always had our speed up. We never took anything for granted. We were always jinking everywhere in country. We were hauling ass because we had the fuel and we could do it. Next deployment, we're doing mixed section, mixed division. So you have Hornets and Tomcats flying together.
Yeah.
And the reason they used to do this in the F-14A is because the F-18 had a better short-range radar than the F-14A, and that was true. And so a Hornet and a Tomcat together made for a nice combination. They complemented each other. Okay. But we had the most powerful and sophisticated fighter-borne radar in the world, man. We didn't need those guys slowing us down, and they were slow. And I made my arguments.
Wait. Can you say that again? Just
the Hornets were slow.
They were so freaking slow, man. And they had the gas. They had to. They were loaded. They had tanks. They had weapons. And so we're flying around. The Tomcat couldn't tell. You could hang everything on it, and it didn't care. It
didn't care. It was going, man.
Yeah. So I get so now we're doing this mixed section, mixed division, and I think we successfully argued them into just going as mixed division. So you had a section of Hornets and a section of Toms. And we're doing this stupid area fam. Anybody listening out there who's going to be TAC air flying in bad guy country, don't ever disrespect your enemy like this. Don't fly around. We would get assigned these targets hey, these targets are the ones we're going to hit someday in the future when Saddam violates the no-fly zone or whatever. So you guys go out there and you fly straight to this target, then straight to that target, then straight to this target, and then home, and do that every day for 6-7 weeks at the same altitude, at the same time.
What could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
And I did a poor job of successfully influencing my leadership, right? I lost. This is what we're doing, Jungle. I was like, fuck, bitch. So here I am one day. There I was, doing our frickin' target FAMs, flying through Basra up north, right along the Iranian border, which is just dumb. I'm sitting here, with my wingtip pointed at an enemy nation, and 12 miles from the frickin' border in bad guy country, and it was just the stupidest thing. And I'm going, 300 knots because I got Hornets on my wing that don't have enough fuel to go all the way around the track unless we go that speed. 280, I think, is what we're doing. 280.
Yeah. In other words, you're going really, really slow.
I'm a freaking piñata,
Piñata.
I'm pissed off about this, and I'm, you're so high you can't really pick up AAA during the daytime. The big guns. If you happen to be looking right at them, you'll see it. But the first indication is going to be, they're shooting at you. And so we go up there and we hit our stupid turn point, and I got my Tomcat wingman on my right wing, and I got a section of Hornets on the left wing. And -3 is a section lead under instruction, and a lieutenant commander, my peer, is -4, right? And so we do our turn, and out of the turn, we're set up like that. I've got my wingman on the right and my 2 Hornet wingmen on my left. And out of the turn, it's a big, complicated turn when you're that slow, and we all cross and come out, and we're in formation, kind of all line abreast, about, 5 or 6 miles across. And I look over to see that the Hornet guys are in position, and I see 20 155 shells go off around -4, and they go off in front of him, behind him, above him, below him, right of him, left of him. He just disappeared out of black.
Oh my God.
And orange fire, it's just, and there's no sound, of course. You just look out there and just see that happen.
And you're like, holy shit, that just happened.
Yeah. And that was the most scared I've ever been in my whole life, as it turns out. I'm sitting there, I'm 280 knots. I'm sitting in the seat, and I got my mask off. I'm just pissed off, and I'm sitting here like a piñata, and then that happens. And I freaking, fuck this, man. Full blower, jam the stick forward. Me and my women go, exit in the vertical to get supersonic. I get my mask on, and I start trying to report. By the way, the good news is that if Saddam shoots at us, we get to blow something up.
Yeah.
And we already have a target. Right? And so we have this all brief. We're going to head over to the initial point and rendezvous and start our run. And the IP was, I don't know, 50 miles away, something like that. And so I get a bag of knots on and start to turn out in that direction, Tomcat flight, flow, whatever. And I'm looking for all my wingmen. And I've got the Tomcat with me, and I've got -3 with me, and no -4. And
shit.
And I can't see him anywhere. There's no debris cloud. There's no fire other than the cloud of shells that went off.
AAA, yeah.
But there's nothing else, and there's no shoots, and the thing is I've got to get a call out, right? I got to let everybody know that we just got shot at. And I'm the mission commander, and I couldn't frickin' speak, and I was so disappointed in myself. The other thing in our system, you don't say where you are exactly. You say where you are relative to a bullseye point that's some random point in country.
Right.
And so I'm in the Tomcat. We didn't have, like we do in later software and in other airplanes, you just have your position relative to bullseye everywhere in your display. At any given time, you can just read it. In the Tomcat, you had to subtract 18 or add 18, to the bearing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't frickin' do it. I'm sitting there looking at it, and I couldn't do the math, and it seemed like an eternity. I could not speak, and I could not do the math. I took a deep breath and waited for my brain to start working again. And it seemed like 10 seconds. It was probably a second and a half or something. But
Right.
it seemed like an eternity because I'm looking for my wingman. I want to get past this report so I can get back to business. And finally got the call out. And then we started headed over there. Anybody, do we start a search and rescue right here? Is he down? I'm calling him on the radio. I'm calling him on guard. Nothing, So I flew over towards the IP. It's about 30 miles away. We don't see any wreckage. We don't see any chute. So we start flying over towards the IP. And I start my turn to kind of gather up my wingman. And I look back and there's Dash 4, and he's nose on and he's coming. And he shows up and he joins up right on my right wing, He's like, sorry, dude. I couldn't talk for like a minute and a half. It scared him so bad he couldn't talk. He almost literally went to the bathroom in his airplane.
Yeah.
He told that story later about what it looked like from inside that cloud.
Oh, I bet.
He heard it. He heard all of that stuff.
Oh, I bet he did.
Wow.
Holy shit.
We couldn't believe
So,
they didn't.
Because a lot of guys we've talked to about being in flak said the weirdest thing about it was you can't hear it. You hear in the movies, it's boom, 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 boom. So you're in the airplane, you can't hear it. He heard it.
So did he have any battle damage from the shrapnel?
None that we saw. There was a little mark on his vertical fin that might have been something, but there was no.
So he wasn't leaking fuel. He had all his hydraulics. He had no holy shit,
Man.
Yeah, it was incredible.
That's awesome.
And it turned out they had set us up just exactly. They'd been watching us do our thing, and
Well, of course, because you guys are right, like you said.
Set your
you've been
watch by it,
flying the
right?
Same track. Yeah.
And they took a great shot. I mean, they earned that shoot down. They just got unlucky.
Wow.
Yeah, we were so freaking lucky that day, and that was. I'll never be that scared. I could be in a car accident. I could be in anything. I could face death at any moment, and it would not scare me as bad as thinking I lost my wingman right there.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that. That's awesome. That is a no shit. That is an awesome story, dude. So other than when you had both motors in that F-14A shut off, and then had you ever had your hand on the ejection handle, other than?
I never did. I
because this is pretty incredible, dude. How many years?
Almost 5,000 hours, and not even touching that handle.
20 years in the Navy, 5,000 hours in fighters, and you're kind of a rarity.
Yeah.
I was flying all new equipment. Even the T-45s I was flying were new. I mean, the oldest airplanes I flew were the T-2 and the A-4 back in the day, and there were a lot of mishaps there. But I was pretty fortunate in most of the equipment I was flying. The closest I came was with Shooter that day in the Tomcat. But there was another time early in my career. I was on my first deployment. In fact, before we got in country, we were just transiting, and we're 1,200 miles from the nearest divert, and we're flying. And I go off the catapult, and I have no left stick at all. The flight controls work just fine during the wipeout, and then salute, cat stroke, rotate, and do my clearing turn, which was to the right. And then when I tried to level the wings, there was no left stick at all.
She wouldn't level. Whoa.
Yeah, there was just there was a plate inserted on, preventing the stick from moving left at all.
Oh shit!
They moved it right, forward, and aft, but.
Did left rudder work at all? Were you able to correct a little bit?
Well, the stick didn't work at all to the left, but the rudders did. So I level the wings with the rudders, and off we go. And so we start, call the boss and call the skipper, and I'm a nugget, brand new pilot, and got a couple hundred hours in the Tomcat, and so we're troubleshooting, and I was always aware that. When I was flying the F-14, the guy in the back seat, his only vote was with the ejection seat, right? He was not a pilot. He did not have flight controls. And so if I scared a Rio bad enough, he'd pull the handle on me, right? And save our lives is what usually happened. He'd save us both. But I was very conscious of the fact that I needed to not scare my back seat, and even early on. And so we're doing the slow flight, and we're talking to everybody, and we're going through this whole thing. And, do I try to force it or do I not try to force it? That was the big discussion. We decided not to try and force it. That after slow flying the airplane, I could control it just fine with the rudders. And so we cleaned back up, and we've decided we're going to come aboard and everything's going to be fine. we get all clean. We have the discussions. We sign off on the radio. And my Rio says, Jean, I want to slow fly the airplane again. And I almost pissed myself right there, because I knew he didn't want to come aboard the ship. He wanted to jump out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Yes.
And
no, thank you.
Look at it from his point of view. He's flying with a freaking nugget pilot who's got a couple hundred hours in the airplane.
Right on.
Right.
Okay.
And so he wanted to slow fly it again. And so yeah, you got it, man. So we slow down and we dirty up, showing him the full controllability of the airplane with the rudders. Look, if they give us a right for line, that was the problem, right? If you got a right for lineup coming down, so the ship, the landing area is at an angle, right?
The ship's always moving away from you to the right.
It is. It's always moving, 8 or 9 degrees, away from you to the right.
Folks, if you can't see this, Jungle's using his hands again. It's awesome.
Yeah. And so as you're coming down the chute, you're constantly making little bitty right wing down corrections. And if you fail to do it, you'll get a call from the LSOs right for lineup. And that's a hard call, and you gotta respond to that. But the response is, give them a nudge of right wing to move the wings to the right, roll right to correct your lineup. But then you immediately need to level the wings, and that would require left stick, and I don't have left stick. And so that's what he wanted me to practice was correcting from a potential right for lineup call with the left rudder. And so I was showing him how much authority the Tomcat had in the rudders, and it had plenty of authority. But whatever you want, man, I will, I'll use plenty of gas. We'll come out, we'll get a tanker, we'll practice passes until you're comfortable.
But I don't want to learn to tread water tonight.
I know. And then even after we were all done, he ends with this. Okay, but if you get past 10 degrees right wing down on final, I'm pulling the handle. And so I flew that whole pass.
Wings level.
No, don't go past 10 degrees right wing down.
Yeah.
Well, at least he gave you a parameter, right? You knew what his limit was.
That was nice.
Right. And there was no auto flight in this, right?
What's that?
There was no auto flight of any kind.
No.
So,
well, hey, let's look at it this way, and this is a good lesson. As a crew, you guys were a 2-man crew. RePete and I never flew with the crew until we got to the airlines. You're a 2-man crew, and you just did some cockpit resource management. Believe it or not, you guys coordinated, and he told you what his limit was. Hey, 10 degrees of bank is my limit. If you go beyond that, I'm getting us out of here.
Yeah.
So
and what was did you have command ejection? Could you have said, all right, you can go, I'm staying, or how did that work in that airplane?
I thought about that secretly. I did not talk to him about that.
Secretly.
Yeah, I did. I thought about it at the time, but honest to God, I'm not sure I wanted to be in the airplane that has the canopy come off and a rocket fire out of my cockpit.
Right. Right before you go over the ramp.
300 feet from the boat.
Right.
I decided that, I was just going to fly a nice pass.
Right.
I'm with you. And obviously you did, because he didn't punch you guys out.
Right.
And you brought an F-14, F-14D back to the... So what was the problem? What was the problem with
the flight controls they're all hard push-pull rods, and they went underneath both seats. They went from my stick, underneath my ejection seat, underneath his ejection seat, and then turned 90 degrees and went up behind the seat. And then did another
85 degree
turn and went down the turtleback, right? So
right.
And so in that
mechanical issue,
so in that vertical column where the push rods were going up, there was a big ECS duct, environmental control system duct, air conditioning duct, and it had a bunch of clips and mounts, and one of those mounts somehow had been damaged, and a part of the flight control had peeled on the catapult. It had leaned back and moved against the flight controls during the catapult.
Yep.
And it peeled a little piece of metal and was a hard stop. And it turns out I probably could have just punched right through it, but we didn't know that at the time. And we were afraid that I'd punch through it and get the stick over there stuck in concrete, and the airplane would just be rolling out of control and we'd have to jump out. So we decided to just take what we had.
Real quick, our man Chase is on it. And I know what you said, and RePete knows what you said, but turtleback. You said, the controls go up in the turtleback. Can you just explain that for our non-fighter pilot guys?
If you look at the back of a Tomcat, that sexy beast, you have that big canopy, sitting up there covering the cockpit, but the whole nose section of the airplane fares into the big tennis court, where the engines and everything are housed in the wings.
And it is a tennis court.
It's huge, yeah. And so you have that beautiful cockpit sitting on the front, and it's fared behind the cockpit to blend the body, and that's the turtleback, right?
Thank you.
And it looks like a turtle shell in the back, and
And for our non-aviator listeners, the F-14 is truly, it takes up the real estate of a tennis court.
I'm not sure tennis courts are that big. I'm just saying.
It's a big player, that's for sure.
It's not a small aircraft. It's beautiful. It is very sexy. It looks fast sitting on the ramp. It does.
But with those wings swept forward, I bet you took up every inch of your landing lane on a big deck carrier.
Yeah, we had more room than the E2s did, and the E2s had the longest wingspan in the COD, but I think we had 9 feet on either side. I'd have to look again. Okay. I think we had 9 feet. It wasn't a lot. Yeah. You couldn't pick up a big drift in close, but
Jungle, I'll never forget the first time that we did a dissimilar with an F-14, and we were on the way to Miramar Oceana for Friday night happy hour. And so we were fighting, and the whiskey area going to be. Anyway, the very first time, saw one airborne. I thought I could see it in a turn, and I'm like, hey, do you see that? And they're like, yeah, how far are you away? I think I don't know. It was like 15 miles away. Yeah. But I'm like, holy shit, because we were getting bogey, we were getting GCI. He goes, your bogey is 15 miles. I go, 15 miles? Holy shit! Because we're used to looking at each other's airplanes, and they're hard to see. And all of a sudden there's a tennis court off in the distance in the turn. You're like, holy shit!
It would blank out the sun, and then it would come nose on and disappear.
It would. That's exactly what happened. Where'd he go?
Looking right at me. I can't see him. He's gone. Yeah,
he was right there. Where'd he go?
Yeah.
If you wanted to get shot in a hurry, man, you just show up in Fallon on the ranges and pull up into the vertical.
Yeah.
Just do one of these, and every bandit for 20
Everybody
miles.
goes, there he is.
At you now, or you're Fight Central. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, man. Well, this has been a wonderful evening. We have taken so much of your time. First thing I want to do is offer you the opportunity to come back with us at some point. I hope you've had as much fun as we've had.
I will talk till I'm out of breath about airplanes. I absolutely love it.
Right.
I don't know if you realize this, and I didn't until I just looked at the clock. We've been at this for an hour and 45 minutes. Bro.
Yeah.
I apologize.
It went like that. No, don't apologize.
I'm having a ball.
You,
we're
I thought we were talking for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So, oh my gosh.
Well, we'll go ahead and land this plane, but like I say, we want to have you back anytime. You're welcome back. Love to have you.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you. For your service. Thank you for stepping up and hanging it out there for this nation. And thank you, Bride, for her sacrifice to help you do that. So
absolutely, I appreciate it.
And Jungle, I have one more question for you, but first I want to reiterate what he said. And I totally remember you now from Kingsville. Totally. It is very, very good memories, by the way. VF-213, was that Black Lions? The Black Lions?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That squad kind of had a black cloud hanging over it for a while. There was a lot of crazy.
The sea lions, the black clouds, I was not a decision maker at that time. I was, a junior officer, lieutenant. I can't pretend to know everything that was going on and why, but when I got there, they had just transitioned to the F-14D. Get them out of A. They crashed 5 A's. And
the bad shit happened in the older ones.
Yeah, that was
Carol Holt Green. Yes,
it was a whole bunch. They had a bunch of mishaps that were tragic, and so then they transitioned to D's. And when I got there, they were D baby. They sent 2 or 3 D babies over there to that squadron to try and help with the transition and everything else. And man, that organization had a bunker mentality, particularly in maintenance. They were just absolutely dug in. You're not telling us anything. The world hates us, and we're not talking to outsiders at all because everybody, it was a really tough culture when I got there, and I'd like to say we had some positive effect. I was only there, 18 months or so. I don't know what I contributed very much to, but we had a blast, and we trained some good guys, and there were some good air crew and some great maintainers there, and we did it. We did it. But they went on to have some trouble after I left.
Isn't that something? It's like there's a black cloud sometimes.
I think, I have no idea.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm sorry to get
over time, but yeah.
Sorry to sidetrack you. I just want to make sure I had that straight in my head.
Yeah.
All right, RePete. I'm off. I'm off my horse.
Well, there we go. All right. We'll get a couple other thank yous in here, and then we'll say goodnight. So first thing we need to thank is our mentor and tech guru, Dave Hamilton, over at backbeatmedia.com. Dave was instrumental in helping us get this podcast up and running from show one, and he's been by our side the entire time. He works at Backbeat Media. In fact, he owns backbeatmedia.com and handles all the advertising for this show. So that's online there. We appreciate all his help.
Hey, if
we
you
mentioned
have
a couple
questions,
terms.
A lot of terms, right?
Yeah.
And we try to cover them, and maybe we didn't get everything covered. So if you have any questions, or if it's not in the glossary, because we try to put everything in the glossary, you can email us at repeat at so there I was .us, fig at so there I was .us, or really, if you want a really good answer, you need to email Sticks, because he's the brains of the operation. Sticks at so there I was .us.
Yeah. And you see me all out in my regalia tonight.
Dude, you are laid out.
I've got the cover. I got the polo shirt. I got the koozie.
Top notch.
Yeah, all available to you today at sotherewas.us/merch. The newest is the hoodie.
Next spring, I'm going to wear the bikini for a show.
There you go.
I'm going to wear it. Yeah. Not really. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah. So
I could get my girlfriend or my wife to come down here, though, and have it on in the background.
hopefully not at the same time.
Well, they know each other now.
They do. Okay, as long as they're friends.
They might be the same person. I'm not sure.
Well, there's that. There's always that possibility. And thanks this week to Michelle Langseth, who threw some money at us this week, $50. Thank you very much. God bless you. We know that money wasn't just thrown in your pocket, but you threw it in ours, and we're humbled by that.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Patrick Miller. Miller?
Yeah, I think we thanked them a couple weeks ago. It was Patrick Miller and Peter Simon.
Call sign Light.
Yeah, Light and Says.
And it says, yeah.
Yeah.
And share the show. Share the show, damn it. Just share the show.
Stop what you're doing right now. Tell 2 friends about this show. And tell them to tell 2 friends. Do it now. And, of course, just another huge patron who happens to be on enlisting this evening is Chucker. Thank you, sir. You're a huge supporter, fan, patron. We can't thank you enough for all you've done for us.
Hey, Chucker lined us up with our man Jungle.
Hey, Chucker.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Indeed.
Hey, Jungle, send some other people our way, because
we got to
we got to get these stories out there, bro.
I will. This was a blast, man. I love the idea of documenting this and kind of just capturing this.
Awesome. In fact, word is you might have a friend who is in charge of one of the big deck carriers out there these days.
Yeah, he's sitting off the coast of Israel right now as CEO of the USS Forward. One of my very favorite backseaters of all time. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, maybe we get a phone patch and just do an interview, right? Yeah.
What do you think the internet cost is for that satellite interview live from the deck of the Ford?
We'll get him when he retires.
There you go. Absolutely.
We'll get him when he retires.
Thanks to Brad Silcott over at BDSAviationPhotography.com for letting us use your images on the show. And, of course, that music in the background. 2 of our favorite Air Force pilots.
Those guys make the Air Force sound good.
They do indeed.
F-16 pilots, the Dos Gringos. Awesome music. You can't have a bad day when you listen to any one of their songs.
Right.
They're all awesome.
They lighten your heart. So, until next week, folks, thanks for joining us. Stay safe and check 6.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
You heard him, Fig.
He said it's over.
Oh, boy, is this great!
Yes, it is.
I never know what you're going to do. That's awesome.
See ya.
See ya.